Now, when it comes to treatment of animals, one of the biggest things that vegans are dishonest about so often, some of them, not all of them, but some of them,
glad you made that distinction,
is the notion that I respect all life. I think every species owns itself and has the right not to be blah, 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 and have the right not to be blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. That is a lie. Nobody, I mean nobody, values all life the same, even just all sentient life.
Pseudo-profundity. You don't know what everyone thinks. There are actually some people that feel that. And I take their word for it because I see that in their actions. You have a look at the giant priests, the attitude that they have. Now, I personally don't share that. I don't have the same respect for all sentient life. But for you to proclaim that you know that no one, that well, at least some people are being dishonest about that, yeah, sure, that's a fair statement. But the reality is, yeah, there are some people that actually share that attitude. They won't even hurt a butterfly. They will do everything in their power to avoid harming any sentient life because they see them as being the same. Now, I don't share that. I mean, I have biases. I freaking love dogs. I think they're freaking awesome. But I don't like more aggressive animals like lions and tigers, and even though everyone else seems to love them, I'm like, get the fuck out of me, freaking lion. You're going to kill me? So I don't like snakes. I mean, I still don't want to harm them, but no, I don't look at all life with the same level of value. However, I treat them with respect. But for you to make the argument that that people don't always have that mentality, or more specifically that anyone that is saying they have this idea of respecting all life equally is false, well, that would be incorrect. Now, I think you're saying that some people are lying about that, and I'd agree with that. But the fact of the matter is we don't know. There are some people who actually do hold this idea that all life is sacred, and they apply that in their life.
If you're going to, for some reason, discriminate against plants, because, hell, with the plants, we're allowed to kill them. But we're going to draw the line there, and that counts as principle.
Are we implying that plants are sentient beings now? Really?
Nobody even draws the line there, including the what are they called, Janeists, who pretend we're never going to harm another human,
Okay, this is where you're being silly. This shows your lack of understanding in regards to the psychology of people. I know a lot of people talk about Larken as being like, Larken really understands people. No, Larken, you're definitively wrong. I don't share this idea, the level to which the giants take it, but yes, there are many giants that have respect for pretty much all life, and they strive to do that. For you to say that they're being dishonest is not only a pseudo-profundity, but it is unwise and stupid. And this is what people do. They make judgments in regards to what people actually think. This is something I see within the community at large. So this is the online community. I see this on Twitter all the time. I know that you think this. No, you don't. You don't know what I think. And you're wrong about that. Stop saying that you know what I think. Because the reality is that these people they say that, and there's no reason not to believe that. They practice this in their life. So let's try to avoid making judgments on what people actually think, and just stick to the validity of their arguments and what they actually believe, whether or not that is actually a logically consistent belief.
You're a living organism. Yes, you are. You can't help it. Maybe you didn't know that a few hundred years ago, if you couldn't see things small enough or didn't understand what was going on. Here's the dead giveaway that none of the vegans who say, I think every animal owns itself just as much as I do, and every animal has an equal right to live, and every blah, blah, blah. No, you don't, no, you don't, and no, you don't, and I can frickin' prove it. If you're driving down the road, and there's a dog, I'm going to keep people out of this example, and there's a dog in one lane, and there's an ant in the other lane, and you have to run one of them over, I bet you're going to run the ant over because you care less about the ant. You value the ant's life less than the dog's life.
Yes, that would apply to me, but I'm not going to be so bold as to say that's the case with every single person, because there are some people that have some crazy ideas or views that are just different to mine.
And you should. I'm going to make it one better. There are 100 ants over there, and there's one dog over there. What are you going to do? I bet, like me and everybody else, you're going to swerve to miss the dog and run over 100 ants. Which means it's not even a numbers game.
This is a false a conflation. The comparison here is, if I had to choose between which life I save, I have a right to choose. I mean, however, when we're talking about violating, so this isn't about choice. This is about saying that it's okay to harm an animal. This isn't about a choice. I'm saying, of course, you don't have a right to do that. I mean, you shouldn't be killing any animals, period. I mean, you should try to avoid killing all sentient life. But to put yourself, I mean, to conflate that with a situation where you had, this is a utilitarian situation. You have to actually choose whether or not to harm one or another. There's no option. Makes perfect sense that you go with the one that you have more respect for. There's nothing wrong with saying that you would choose to save human beings as opposed to saving animals. But it is wrong for you to say, hey, it's okay for me to kill animals because I like the taste of them.
You don't care about those 100 ants as much as you care about that one dog. Why? Because you draw lines and distinctions of morality just like everybody else. Meat eaters, vegans, everybody draws lines of morality. They can draw them in different places, and you can debate about where they...
That's true, but some of us are more logically consistent with the lines that we draw. Some of us don't make horrible conflations that human beings are worthy of rights, but animals, well, we can do what the hell we want with them because we need to eat them for food.
And how people should treat different kinds of species. Don't pretend you respect all species the same and value all species the same. That is an absolute freaking lie. And especially if you go back to the example of the predator and prey species, every one specimen of a predator species has to eat lots and lots and lots of prey species. So if it's just a numbers game, if the value of every life is equal, then you should go kill the coyote because he's going to be slaughtering thousands and thousands of rodents and frogs, and you should go slaughter the raccoon because of all those poor defenseless crayfish and frogs he's going to eat.
Now you're thinking like a consequentialist. You don't make decisions on that are going to lead to a potential outcome. For instance, I don't say, I'm going to go kill this person, kill this human being, because he's most likely going to kill lots and lots of people in the future. That's thinking like a utilitarian. You either have the right to defend yourself, or you don't.
You go slaughter all the predators. Well, no, it doesn't apply to them. I know it doesn't freaking apply to them, so stop talking as if it's a universal rule in all directions when you know it isn't, when you don't even apply it that way, when you don't even believe it.
I do know it's a universal rule. I do apply it, and I do actually believe it. Stop making judgments about what people think.
Stop saying cliche little sayings that you don't believe. You don't believe that all life is equally valuable. If
you don't know that I don't believe that. I may and I may not, but stop pretending that you know. Stop pretending that you know the soul, you know the thinking of every single person. And that's one of the worst things a philosopher can do, to talk about things that they can't definitively know, but they presume they know. The one thing that I like about the philosophy of what I would call voluntarism is it's supposed to be a philosophy of humility. As soon as people start making judgments on what is definitively going to happen, start making judgments on what they know other people think, you're moving into the realm of consequentialism. You're moving into a philosophy of arrogance. That's not what voluntarism is about to me. Let's try to stick to what we know, not what we presume.
The first thing you do is frickin' kill yourself, because you can't go for a walk without killing hundreds or thousands of little tiny living things.
We're talking about accidental conscious knowing. Oh, sorry, accidental versus conscious. So if I'm walking down, of course, every single day I'm going to accidentally, through fault of my own, but not consciously, do things that harm other beings without consciously being aware of it. But there's a distinction between making conscious effort to actively harm something as opposed to, oh, I've walked down the street and I've stepped on all these microorganisms, I've stepped on these insects. To not make a distinction between that, I think, moves you into the realm of logical insanity. Clearly there's a distinction between someone that is actively trying to harm a sentient being, as opposed to someone, through the course of living in this world, accidentally harms sentient beings. And I think people that are looking at this thing logically, consistently, make the distinction and realize that, yes, as long as you were not consciously initiating violence, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. All you can do is do what you can to avoid harming other sentient beings, and that is the philosophy of ahimsa. That is the philosophy that is represented within veganism.
And you can say, well, I can't not go out, so that's sort of necessary. It's unavoidable. It's avoidable. Kill yourself. If you actually valued every single one of those things as much as a human being.
Wow, we're moving into the realm of pure stupidity here. We're trying to conflate this idea of veganism saying that, well, you have to not indirectly cause harm to anything. And look, you know what? I think there are some people that subscribe to this idea that you must avoid harming anything indirectly, and that's something that is impossible. And look, this is actually one of the faults of the people that look at veganism in this light. Oh, you're indirectly causing harm. As soon as you move into that realm, which is a consequentialist idea, then yeah, you might as well kill yourself because you're always going to be doing that. But if you're looking at this from a philosophy of libertarian or anarchic thinking, or the idea that it's wrong to initiate violence, it has to do with not initiating, making a conscious effort to harm something. There is every bit of difference between consciously doing something, going out and killing an animal, as opposed to going out and doing something that is likely to bring about more harm. And unless, of course, you make that distinction, you're always going to be falling into this line of, well, I'm causing harm, so I might just kill myself. But that's pretty obvious. And I think the vegans that don't understand this, they're the vegans that I think are being a little silly with their approach.
You would not go out for a walk. Like if for some bizarre reason me going out for a walk meant 100 human beings were going to die, I wouldn't say, well, I can't not go out for a walk. Sorry, 100 people, you're going to die because I want to go for a walk today. You value them differently. Admit it. Be honest about what you believe. Admit that there are lines and we draw them in different places. And then argue with people about where the line should be and how we should treat different species. Don't do these generalizations that you know aren't at all true.
I agree with that. I personally share that viewpoint, but I still won't say that other people definitively have this idea that every sentient being is of different worth. Because some people actually do believe that.
Another thing that comes up quite often is the thing of suffering. Like if you eat meat, you're contributing to suffering. Sometimes that is true. Actually, the statement is not true. Sometimes if you eat meat, you are contributing to suffering. And it can be pretty often too. Like, I totally hate the whole factory farming thing and the way they treat animals and keep them penned up and they're suffering and it's horrible. I don't like that. I don't think that's nice. And if you want to say we shouldn't be funding this and helping this to happen, excellent. I agree. That's outstanding. Say that. That's honest and true and noble and it makes sense and it's rational. Say that. But when somebody says, like, if you eat meat, you're causing suffering, they're already unclear in their own head. And again, this is all about being...
I agree. I 100% agree. And this is one of the issues that I take with this consequential attitude to veganism. Oh, you're causing suffering from many things that you do. If we want to make a list of all the things that you're doing that are facilitating supporting organizations, that's a very different thing. There's a very clear distinction between violence through proxy, through the support of things, as opposed to actual direct violence. As soon as you start doing this consequentialist thing like, oh, well, wait a sec, you're friends with someone that supports this horrible industry, and by you being friends with them, you're supporting violence, that gets a little crazy.
Clear and honest. If you get run over by the side of the road and somebody eats you, did he make you suffer? No, you're frickin' dead. Dead things don't suffer. The steak on the plate is not suffering because somebody eats it.
Secondhand suffering. You kill someone. I kill you with a bullet to your head. Obviously, that you may die without suffering. However, the fact that there are all of these people that support you, your family, your loved ones, your sycophantic fans that believe everything that you say, that will get very frustrated, that will suffer. Some people that will mourn your loss. You have created secondhand suffering. So, yes, with that analogy, you're still creating suffering by doing that. You're having a detrimental effect on the lives of other people, and you're doing something that you don't have the right to do. Now, of course, you can make the argument that everything that we do is going to facilitate some kind of suffering, but there is a distinction between things that we have a right to do and things that we don't. I have a right to watch movies that you don't like, and that may make certain people annoyed. There are certain people that like Trump, for instance, and by them merely liking Donald Trump, that offends and causes other people to suffer. They get frustrated, they get angry. People even become suicidal when they see the level of support there is for people that they don't like. However, it is someone's right to like someone. It is someone's right to obviously do certain things. The issue that I have is people that do things they don't have a right to that cause suffering. You should not have the right to go and initiate violence on a human being or a non-human animal, I would advocate for. And yes, that causes suffering, but it's more the fact that you don't have a right to do that. And it also causes suffering.
And you could say, well, no, it's the fact that it was killed so you could eat. All right, well, then point at that. Don't point at the eating meat.
I agree.
Use, for example,
But there also comes there still comes a level of responsibility in the fact that you're supporting organizations, which is something that I and many people take issue with. And granted, I would make the argument that yes, people after the fact, and a lot of vegans are going to hate hearing this, but the reality is after the fact, and I heard Buddha made reference to this, the idea of not believing in advocating for killing of sentient beings. However, in a situation, now this is just a story that I heard about the Buddha. As to the veracity of this, I do not know. But in a situation where if someone had if someone killed an animal and offered the meat to the Buddha, this is after the fact, the Buddha would in fact eat that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to allow something to go to waste. Now, personally, I won't do that. The Giants don't do that because you're contaminating yourself. They believe that it's harming yourself, and there are many reasons as to why they won't. But the reality is, it's not the same thing. Supporting something through proxy, for instance, this is after the fact. There's a clear distinction between paying for someone directly to go kill an animal. That you're still complicit in the violence there. That's something that is clearly immoral from a voluntarist standpoint. But the distinction between that and simply supporting something after the fact, you're friends with someone that supports a horrible organization. However, you continue to be friends with them and you give them money knowing that money is going to be used to fuel their horrible organization. Like the level to which you can take this thing becomes a little crazy if you understand what I'm saying. But the clear distinction is direct violence versus indirect violence. And if you're doing something that's indirect, yeah, granted, I think you should be putting pressure on people not to indirectly support organizations that you're not in agreement with, but they still have the right to. It's not a direct violation. As soon as it becomes a direct violation, so where you're paying someone to do these things, or you are doing these things yourself, that's when it becomes immoral. Do you see how much more logically consistent I am within my thinking than I find most vegans are in regards to this kind of stuff, and then actually try to look at this thing objectively, logically, and just make the consequential argument, well, you're supporting exploitation, you're supporting violence, man. Now, unfortunately, a lot of vegans do have this mindset, which often obfuscates the logical consistency of the message. And I think, in fairness, Larken's actually addressing a lot of the people that make these logically inconsistent arguments. But the place that I'm coming from, a place of like the science of non-violence, the science of the golden rule, it is perfectly logically consistent. And I would argue that it is far more logically consistent than the argument that we must only have respect for human animals, but it's all right for us to kill and butcher non-human animals. If you believe in anarchy, the idea of no rulers, in the idea of the non-aggression principle, then it is a principle that extends itself not only to human animals, but to non-human animals, to all sentient beings. And that is consistent.
Like if some, deer gets killed as a roadkill by accident, it's like, poor thing, and, well, we might as well eat the meat. Does it contribute to its suffering? Nope. Does it care? Nope. It's kind of dead. Doesn't really mind what you do with it after the fact. By the way, I should also throw in the fact that other than sometimes people, everything when it dies gets eaten by other species. Every freaking thing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with nature, you might say, no, a lot of it will just rot in the woods. Rot is the word we use for getting eaten by maggots and bacteria and lots of little tiny animals that are devouring you. That's what happens. When you're dead, it doesn't cause extra suffering for you to...
That's immaterial. I've actually had this conversation with someone and made the argument, look, if the animal dies of natural causes and you eat it, there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem is, people don't want to wait for these animals to die because then it becomes unhealthy. People would rather end their life and then eat them. If we're dealing with human beings, and look, granted, I would still maintain that you're being a dickhead if you want to eat someone after they died, even though they haven't explicitly said they don't want to be eaten. The idea of killing them beforehand, before they actually died, and saying, oh, you're going to die anyway, and then eating them, that's what I would take issue with. That's what any rational person would take issue with. The idea of eating something once it's died, I mean, if you want to do that, yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I think it would be a stupid argument to make that it is somehow immoral to eat something, to eat an animal once it's dead, unless, of course, you can make a case that it was against the wishes of the animal, or the human or non-human animal.
Eaten by something. And the reason I say people are exceptions is because we do this weird thing of sprinkling stuff on people, putting them in a box and putting them in the ground to make sure nothing can eat them. Like, okay, sort of weird. Or we burn our corpses. Strange. But whether a vulture eats you, or a coyote, or a fly lands on you and then you're maggot food, you get eaten by something. That has nothing to do with whether you suffered.
True.
It's unrelated. So when you tell somebody you're causing suffering by eating meat, it's a lie. You can say you're contributing to suffering if you buy food from the industries that treat their animals like this before they produce them and put them for sale. Say that. It's actually true. It's actually honest. I support you in trying to get people to not do that. That's outstanding. Do that.